Novak Djokovic might have been the Wimbledon champion once, but nowadays he's making headlines with his anti-vaccine stance that's plunging his tennis career for good. In the latest turn of events, Forbes CEO has also joined John McEnroe in slamming the U.S. for not letting Djokovic play the U.S. Open. Today, we'll look at what others have to say on the U.S. Open, barring Djokovic for his vaccination stance, so let's head straight into it. First off, why did the U.S. government turn down the legendary tennis player? Well, under the current rules of entry to the country, the U.S. requires all foreign arrivals to show documented proof of being fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Now for the Serbian player, this means he needs to get the vaccination to play in the U.S. Open that's being hosted in New York City this time. But Djokovic is not eligible to play this year because he's not vaccinated, and from his interviews and anti-vax stance so far, it looks like he's not intending on the jab anytime soon. If fans were hoping for authorities to show an exception for their star player, we've got bad news. The U.S. Open has ruled out seeking medical exemptions for any player. No jab, no tournament. So this has virtually ruled Djokovic out of the tournament. So what did John McEnroe and Forbes have to say in support of him? It goes without saying Djokovic is a legend in the tennis world. Currently, he's ranked number 6 in singles by the Association of Tennis Professionals. He's also been ranked number 1 for a record total of 373 weeks. So naturally, when he was banned from playing, many former players, experts, and famous personalities rose up to criticize the authorities. The retired former world number 1 John McEnroe also spoke out in his favor, calling the decision BS. Tennis legend slammed Joe Biden's government for restrictions that stopped the 21-time major champion from entering the country. What's more is that Forbes CEO Steve Forbes also agrees. Not letting the reigning Wimbledon champion compete at Flushing Meadows for being unvaccinated was absurd. Forbes took to Twitter to back John McEnroe's stand, saying, "Tennis legend John McEnroe rightly slams the U.S. government, barring 21-time Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic from competing in U.S. Open because he isn't vaccinated against COVID-19, an example of bureaucratic BS. But despite the strong sentiments, does Djokovic really deserve to play in the U.S. Open? Fans of the tennis pro would recall him being sent back from Australia in his 2022 campaign following a visa row over his medical exemption. He was unable to defend his title at the Australia Open and had to make his season debut in Dubai, where he made the quarterfinals. He was also missed Indian Wells and Miami as he wasn't vaccinated. We still had some hope when he found some form in Madrid, but eventually also lost to eventual winner Carlos Alcaraz in the last 4 of a third-set tiebreaker. Then the same week, he triumphed over the 6th time in Rome, getting his first title of the year. Finally, after his Roland Garros title defense against Rafael Nadal in the quarterfinals, the Serb successfully defended his title at Wimbledon. With his victory over surprise finalist Nick Kyrgios, Djokovic had the 21st major title under his belt. Things were looking good at last. But now, with the rejection from the U.S. Open, Djokovic's career will take another dip. He's set to miss the entire North American hard-court swing because of his vaccination status, unless there's a last-minute policy change ahead of the New York major. But we wouldn't hold out hope for it. It's very unlikely the U.S. government will budge. For his sake, we hope the Serb champion gets to compete in the tournament. If he doesn't, he's set to drop 1,200 ranking points from his run to the U.S. Open final last year, where he was denied a calendar year Grand Slam by Medvedev. But what do the fans think of this bureaucratic mess? Surprisingly, unlike Forbes and McEnroe, the fans are with the government on this one. Rules are rules, and you can't break them even if you are a 21 Grand Slam title holder. After all, the player hasn't come up with a reason to convince fans why he shouldn't get vaxxed. By now, you must be wondering, if not getting a vaccination does cost him so much, why not just take the jab? Well, back in 2020, well before the vaccines were even available, he had clearly stated he was opposed to vaccination. Yikes, an anti-vaxxer. Then later, he clarified his position by saying he's no expert and would keep an open mind and wanted to decide what's best for his body. During a Facebook Live, the Serb pro explained that he wouldn't want to be forced by someone to take a vaccine to travel and compete in tournaments. Now get this, the player even said he's curious about well-being and how we can empower our metabolism to be in the best shape to defend against COVID-19 naturally. Sounds a lot like a Facebook conspiracy group, but that's not the only time the players come under attack for his questionable science. The tennis star has a track record for his questionable claims. Remember his Instagram Live where he told fans that positive thoughts could clean polluted water? Not to mention, his wife also repeated a 5G conspiracy theory on Instagram that got taken down for spreading misinformation. The cherry on top is that his own country has called him out for his anti-vaxxer stance. Half of Serbia's population is fully vaccinated, so his comments on avoiding vaccination for immunity came under fire by government epidemiologist Predrag Kon for creating misconceptions. And how's the world reacting to Djokovic not playing at the U.S. Open? Fans are confused about how they should react to the news. On the one hand, fans think he had it coming. He himself said that his his decision would cost him missing out on tournaments, but still, making decisions about his body comes before any title or anything else. In the champion's own words, it's a price he was willing to pay. So really, to sit there and attack the US Open for not letting him play comes off as two-faced. But shockingly, fans back home think he's a hero for sticking to his choice. Hailing him as an icon of freedom of choice, anti-vax groups claim the tennis star's a political prisoner. Twitter users have banded together under hashtags to support Djokovic and to boycott the US Open. Conspiracy accounts are asking, if that's what they can do to a multi-millionaire superstar, just think what they can do to us. Well, for now, Djokovic's stubborn attitude might have helped him on the court, but not so much off court. In other news, first off, Sania Mirza pulls out of the US Open after a tendon injury. Fans love having the Indian tennis star updating them on what goes on in her life by posting glimpses from her professional and personal life on social media. But this time, the news on her latest Instagram post left fans heartbroken. Sania informed her fans in an Insta story that she won't be able to compete in the US Open due to an injury in her forearm and elbow. She got injured 2 weeks ago when playing in Canada. Initially, the star revealed she didn't think of it as anything serious, but after going through some scans, she's got to know she'd torn a little bit of her tendon. Earlier in January, the sports celeb had announced her plans to retire from tennis after finishing the current season. Now, the injury's going to make changes to some of her retirement plans, but she'll keep her fans posted. Speaking of injuries, Zverev also withdrew from the US Open due to ankle surgery. Looks like a lot of star players won't be joining the US Open this time around. The world number 2, Alexander Zverev, will also be sitting out the US Open due to ankle surgery. The 25-year-old prodigy tore several ligaments during its French Open semifinal versus Rafael Nadal. After missing out on Wimbledon, he was hoping to at least be ready for the US Open, but sadly, he's decided to skip the final Grand Slam tournament of the season. And lastly, Serena Williams leaves her legacy to African tennis as an inspiration to girls. When Serena walks out of the courts of Flushing Meadows at the US Open next week, she'll be saying farewell to her legendary career once and for all. The 40-year-old debuted in pro tennis in 1995 and won her first Grand Slam trophy 4 years later. Since then, the icon has won a whopping 23 Grand Slam titles and reclaimed the white man's sport for black women across the world. Beyond the court, she'll always be remembered for speaking out against racism and gender inequality, especially with prize money, and her experiences in the healthcare system as a black woman. Tennis Kenya Secretary General Mbugua Karani calls her the be-all for African tennis and young African girls. So as she prepares to evolve from the sport, fans expect a teary-eyed farewell at her last professional tournament at the US Open. There's not a single girl in Africa and all over the world who doesn't look up to her as a role model, and even after she bows out from her career, she'll continue inspiring them. And that's a wrap for this video. What do you think about Djokovic being barred from playing in the US Open? Let us know in the comments below. Do give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification for similar videos. We'll see you in the next one.